It is the Anfield Wrap after Liverpool failed to win, got beat for the third consecutive match. With me, I've got Rob Gutmann.
Hi there.
How are you feeling? I was going to refer to you as Mr. Bonkbuster as well, in the context of Jilly Cooper's sad passing, but that's not the noise of someone who falls into that category. That was a sad noise.
Yes, I know. It's, what is it, 48 hours on?
Yes.
I was there. I was upset. I'm still upset about it, but more more on that.
More on that as we come. Okay, I've got Phil Blundell and I've got Ian Ryan as well, and we are brought to you by Peloton. Peloton are Liverpool Football Club's official cardio and strength partner, and we did the ride to Rio with them all the way through September. It is now October, but we're still made up. Covered twice the distance to Rio, so Rio and back in the end was the nature of the ride in question. Back. They did. That's how much they covered. It was 140 people who all got involved towards the end of this, so they did really, really well, and you can join that community whenever you want. Please do consider doing so. You've got to have the Peloton app, and then you can join the Anfield Wrap team, and you can sign up for now, but also for future challenges. There will be other stuff to come, so very, very pleased. Thank you very much if you did that. It is very kind of you, and we are very pleased to be partnered with Peloton, but we do have to get stuck into it. Ian Ryan.
Do we? Do we really?
Oh, sorry.
Nelson Muntz over here.
Unbelievably juvenile.
I was kind of into it though.
You first. It's a dreadful week.
It is.
It's two last minute, you can't call them, well they are last minute winners, but not for us. So last minute defeaters through the course of this. It's worth bearing that in mind, in that those games were level. Therefore, when the injury time ball goes up on both occasions, from a Liverpool point of view, but it's obviously the meat and the sandwich of it is the Galatasaray results as well, where Liverpool are defeated by a contentious penalty, but they are defeated. And the point about this is, you can pinpoint moments in all three of those games where Liverpool play well, but you would be really, really hard pushed to say Liverpool played well.
No, I would agree. And in terms of the games, I mean, there's no real game there where you're thinking Liverpool should have come away as the winners. And the Galatasaray one, listen, I can live with that because, as you say, contentious penalty, and it's in the context of there's loads of time to put that one right. But the two league games are just a massive kick in the bollocks, for want of a better phrase, to be honest. And on paper, of course, they look like difficult games, and they are tough games. We did the overview show, certainly a few of us around there did the overview show where we looked at the games, and we all looked at that week and thought, that's a bit of a tasty one. That could be a problem. But I still think a decent Liverpool team in form should be going to Palace and Chelsea and walking away with a minimum of 4 points, really. And I think that's where it's a bit of a blow. And I think in hindsight, you can look at some of the reasons and think, actually, of course, it was always going to be a tough week because Palace are great. And I get some of that. And in the case of Crystal Palace, they are a good team. But I also think sometimes post-match, or maybe even as you're kind of coming up to the game, we get a little bit like, we build them up in such a way where I'm almost double-checking, I'm making sure we're not playing Real Madrid. Yeah, the way some people were talking about Crystal Palace. And I say that knowing they're a good side, but my God, we didn't half build them up and they won't get beat by Everton. Now, I know they should have won that game, but they are a team that are beatable, and Liverpool's record at Selhurst Park is very, very good. And then the Chelsea thing, of course, you think, well, Chelsea's going to be a tough game. It's Chelsea, but they're a bit of a basket case, and they have been this season. And I don't particularly think they were very good at the weekend, but it didn't half feel like we just played into their hands a little bit. When you think about all the injuries they had, and I know they've got a big squad, but they had a lot of injuries at the back. They suffered injuries mid-game. And yet, the best we're probably looking at is a point, but in the end, we don't even get that.
Yeah, it's a blow of a week, isn't it? I think when we talk about the overview show that I did that, and I basically said I would have taken 2 draws from these 2 away games, not because I think Liverpool shouldn't be getting 4 points, but in the context of the teams we're playing, the situation of it, I think 2 draws would have been absolutely fine. So to be on the back on 94 or whatever of both games that you've got the point, and we in very different ways managed to lose it. It's just very, very frustrating, to be perfectly honest. I think the performances weren't great. I would ideally like Liverpool to not go 1-0 down inside 20 minutes every game. I think that
To the opposition's first shot.
it just changes everything so much in terms of Liverpool are going out with a game plan, and they're not going out with a game plan that says, right, what we're going to do is we're going to have 70 minutes to turn this game around. That's not what you're doing. So you're going out there and you're going, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then everything goes out the window because the game just changes completely. I think the annoying thing is I think we've started all 3 games broadly reasonably well, not taking the game to them and demolished them and created loads of chances and made goalkeepers make an abundance of saves and so on, but we've been in control, we've looked reasonably good, we've moved the ball about quite well, and then you go 1-0 down and it's all out the window and you've basically got a massive uphill battle. I think the games in isolation you could sort of treat a little bit differently in terms of if you get to the end of the season and you say to me Arsenal and Manchester City have both gone to Palace and Chelsea and have come away with 0 points, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't necessarily think it'll happen, but it wouldn't be a shock thing. But when you put everything in the space of a week, exactly,
you
put it.
Last season.
But I think the context is important. Know where they were this weekend.
Yeah, 100%.
All
that context is important,
issues.
but they've still got tons and tons of good players.
No,
They've got really
I'm
good
not saying
midfielders.
that. I'm not saying that.
You know, and they were a bit of a mess last season at times as well. It's worth saying they have a long run where they go from second in the table and end up down at 6th or 7th. But in that run, no one won there.
Yeah.
That run was precipitated by them losing against Fulham. So the first time they've lost a league game this calendar year was last weekend against Brighton, when they looked a bit of a mess and they went down to 10 men. That's the first league game they've lost on their pitch all the way through this calendar year. And I understand, because I was part of this and there was a lot of people who weren't at all happy. I kept saying it's a good point, but that's how rarely they get beat on that pitch. And I think that plays a part in the game. I think that part of the game, what they get right, Ian, and credit to them, and it's quite ironic really, because this is what people think Liverpool do, but I don't think we do enough of it, is they make it quite mad. When they've got the centre-back issues, what they do is they just basically decide that attack's the best form of defence, and they just run at us. But I think that's because the good players have backed themselves. Is that fair? Because that's what I think. That's what I saw. No, a centre midfield that backs itself.
It does descend into a bit of a mad game, but I kind of hold Liverpool responsible for a lot of that, for allowing some of these games to kind of almost become that. I mean, I think it was Pete Bolster. I saw a tweet from him saying very early on, first 10 minutes, it was something like, the champions have turned up here. And I knew what he meant, because we started with a bit of purpose, and you thought, okay, they look like they're on the front foot, Liverpool here. They've taken those 2 defeats quite badly. You are expecting a reaction, because that's what top teams do. And the manager would have been looking for a reaction, and you're thinking, yeah, it looks okay. But you shoot yourself in the foot again by doing what Phil said. You give the first goal, and you give a team who's probably a little bit low on confidence. You know, they've had the recent defeat to United. 100% agree. They've had the recent defeat to Brighton. They've got a world of problems with no centre halves, and as I say, they come on to lose 2 more mid-game. So for me, there's a period of that game where it's just absolutely there for the taking, and Liverpool do not manage to really come close to taking it.
I don't know. It feels like the whole season, from the good to now the bad, we've sort of had to view all the games through a certain prism. They've all been about the vagaries of fate. It's been a motif all the way through it. Because when we were winning late. Now we're losing late. So it's weird. So it's hard to discern where the truth lies, really. Has fate been cruel to us? Did we deserve? Could we have had better, regardless of our approach, with a little bit more luck against Chelsea? Did we get more than we deserved in the other games because of luck? And that's what we can't quite see. And in a way, it's hard to judge this little disaster phase until we see what comes next. My overarching conclusion, having settled down on it, was we couldn't have to do with some easier games. And in a sense, they are coming. The bigger batch further down the line, but they are coming. I mean, the narrative of this weekend is that Liverpool are finished and Arsenal are the coming force. But they had a home banker against a very, very poor team. And we go to Chelsea, as you said, who've only been beaten twice on that pitch.
They played West Ham, Forest and Leeds at home.
Yeah. Those are three of their 4 easiest games of the season, something like that. Chelsea, when you go there and you go to Palace, in the ground, you always know you're in a game. And the reason whether we've got quite a good record at Palace or a bad one at Chelsea is they're tight grounds with feisty crowds, and they will take every bit of encouragement. And Chelsea, we gave them that one bit of encouragement with the Moises Caicedo goal, and boy, that wound me up, because it felt like 5 seconds I was just personally was screaming, close him down. I mean, when I've seen it back, it's a hell of a strike. I was behind the goal, it almost looked like a sitter, Because well, just so the simply thing, it's like a training ground goal. You know, you see them go, like a Salah putting in top bins 4 in a row, goes, yeah, but there was nobody challenging him. And that's what it felt like, one of them, a player of that technique and quality. That, I don't know what the XG is. This is probably an argument you could have about
0.08 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But does XG account for the fact that you've got no maniac about to land on your toe as you shoot? Because he had no maniac around. And I made that a 0.6 XG chance.
That's
obviously I'm
also,
joking.
StatsBomb does if they're in front of them, but obviously not if they're behind them. But anyway, come on.
Obviously I'm joking. It's not a 0.6, but because it's from 22 yards or something like that. But for a professional footballer with good ability to have a clear run on goal with no shot, it's a much higher XG chance.
It's the fact that he gets. I think your point is, which I do agree with, is that he gets to steady himself.
Yeah.
It's that he gets that moment of that touch
And
where
to
he gets
look
to
up,
go
steady himself, look up, see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in training you give him 5 of those shots, he probably puts 2 in. With no other players then, he might as well have had no one. That's by the way. My point was, is it about the vagaries of luck at the moment? Is it just things go? Don't get me wrong. I think there needs to be another sort of qualifier on this one, which is that Liverpool played in Turkey in the week, and I know we made changes, but that trip there and back is going to drain anyone. I said beforehand, just watch out for what happens.
Off the back of another away as well, by the way.
Back of another away.
They haven't left London. They played 3 home games in a row.
I think up to about 85. Up to about 85, we look the winner of that game, but our legs go. There is a thing about squad building you put it. I thought when they put 2 young flying wingers on, I thought, wish we could put 2 young flying wingers on, apart from having Mo and Gakpo, who were tiring and both played best part of 90 minutes, didn't they? And you go, but they've got paid. They were just getting in behind us in the final 5 minutes. We had no answer.
That's where I think, if it does end up being in the league games, 2 points, you go fair enough, because I'm going into the games on the back of 5 wins thinking I'll take 4 points, because we're obviously got 5 wins on the bounce, and you're thinking, well, we're in decent form, albeit some of those games, as you said, Rob, they maybe could have gone either way, for being really, really fair about it. But I don't think, like in this one, not to dig the manager out too much, but I don't think he gets his team right. I can't believe he played McAllister. Honestly, I can't believe it. Given what we've seen and the form he's been in and the way he struggled, full well that midfield is going to be. It's the only area really where you think Chelsea are looking like they are quite strong. Yes, they've got João Pedro up front, who's done okay, but that they've got a world of problems at the back, as I mentioned before. The goalie's a mess, and by the way, we don't even test him in the first 45. I can't believe Liverpool don't have a shot on target in the first 45, given what you've seen him produce, that keeper, in recent months, years, whatever you want to call it. But that midfield, it was always going to be crucial, and I was stunned he played McAllister. I really was.
What do you think he should play, Curtis Jones?
No, I probably wouldn't have done that either, if I'm being honest. But I would have started Florian Wirtz, but I would have had him ahead of Dom Szoboszlai and Gravenberch as a more of a sitting 2 or a 2 that are just, they can go, but they go at the right times. But I would have had them 2 in front of the back 4, and then I would have played Wirtz. And I know some people wouldn't have, but I would have. I just think it was.
I don't think I would have too, but I don't think it's mad. I think the question is McAllister's fitness. I thought he was all right and combative for once, actually. So I thought taking him off was right, but I don't know.
He only takes him off on 86.
Oh, was it that late?
So it's not like he takes him off with loads of
I thought it was one of his
goal.
better games, to be perfectly honest. Not necessarily. I agree with you. I would have started.
He's terrible for the goal, and I don't quite know what he's done to earn a spot in that team. And I'm saying this as someone who really likes McAllister, but he's just not been at the races at all.
Can't you say that about a few of them?
Some people might say that about Wirtz. I understand it. There's different context behind it, because he's a new player coming into a new league. But I think in terms of, if you want to make sure your forwards are getting some support in terms of creating chances and stuff, surely you had to play Wirtz behind Isak and at least have someone who's providing the bullets. I thought it was incredibly harsh not to play him in that game, and I think as soon as he comes on, he makes a bit of a difference.
He does.
And the manager, the fact that you've got football managers, and it's not just Slot, by the way, you've seen it across the league, they're having to make substitutions at half time. It tells you one thing, they've got it wrong.
This is one of the theme of this season, I think. We can go, going back to the theme of have we been lucky, how are we now unlucky, is one constant thread is, I think a number of our stars haven't looked themselves. McAllister for mitigating reasons. Mohamed Salah hasn't looked himself, although I thought he was more like Mohamed Salah at times in this game. Gakpo, better on Chelsea, funnily enough, but hasn't looked right. There's a number, you can go through the squad, and there's a number of players who I don't think have yet shown up. And of course, Yeah, and you go to the back, you got Konate as well. None of the right backs apart from Soboslai have entirely convinced. So I think that's been an issue. So this is why I don't take issue. I don't think you're wrong in saying he was wrong to pick McAllister. But I think you could sit there and go, why the fuck are you picking Gakpo? And quite frankly, what's Salah doing to get in the team at the moment? Of course, he's Mo Salah. So you hope, you trust that something will come right in that space. But that's the issue we got at the moment, is we're not getting the level we expect. And you can say that about the new signings to a degree, although there's much more mitigation there.
I think there's, on the McAllister point, Phil, I think one of the problems is McAllister looks so short of fitness, and especially match fitness. Therefore, the only way you get match fitness is by playing in matches. My thing on this, you said you wouldn't have started him. I was really surprised to see him on the team sheet as well, is this just felt a little bit like a bit of a cup final. Like, you get through this one and then you worry about some of these details the other side. And that's why I was surprised to see him. But this is almost the case full stop. The manager is still trying to get Isak up to speed. The best version of this is he's still trying to get Isak up to speed. Bradley's start of the season was disrupted. McAllister, hugely disrupted in pre-season, but the manager wants to get him there. But I think that this is one of the things that the manager is battling with. I think he is battling with the fact that it's not so much... form is a big part of this, because form and fitness always touch each other. But he's having to work out stuff around form, work out stuff around shape, but he's crucially also trying to work around stuff around fitness.
Yeah, it's like a perfect storm of mess, really, isn't it? In terms of, it's obviously a new system, and they're trying to tweak things, but sort of partially the concerning thing about Saturday is that you could have picked that team last season by 2 players, couldn't you? Yeah. One of them's the left back, one of them's the centre forward. It still didn't look quite what you would like it to be, like it did maybe a year ago, and that's a bit of a problem. But there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of low on confidence there, and people are a bit unsure of themselves and making sort of second guessing decisions, and
that's why conceding to the
that's why you just can't get into the position where we did this. I feel like we did this a couple of years, like 3 or 4 years. I think in the mad Klopp season, the 22-23 where we come fifth, I feel like we kept going 1-0 down to the first shot on target.
That was the one.
For about 2 months, it felt like we just go 1-0 down.
To be fair, it's one of the things that Schlotzels addresses when he comes in. Right. It stops happening and because you've just had week. That team was turning it round an awful lot. Yeah. But this is. But
trying to turn it round whilst you've got this, new setup, players who've obviously got, I think they've got issues regarding what happened in the summer. I think that's a perfectly valid position to be in. There's lack of confidence. There's just not being quite on it as well. Like Konate, for example, he's not on it. And when he's not on it, he sort of gets into a bit of a spiral and he becomes worse for not being on it. In the way that some people could go, I'll play myself through this. He doesn't feel like one who can play himself through it.
Doesn't have a 6 out of 10 game.
No, teams are now into a position where they're like, well, we can just give him the ball. And he's in his own head, and that's fine. And everything slows down. And, I thought the goalkeeper was good on Saturday, but his distribution is probably not quite as good as Alisson. That's another knock-on issue. I think we've got a bit of an issue.
Kept forgetting what foot he kicks with as well, by the way.
Also, people kept.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
Passing to his wrong foot.
That's what I mean. Forget what foot he kicks with. They just kept forgetting what foot. It was driving me mad.
Trying to buy blind passes, and it's like
he's left-footed, lads. We're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, he is competent with his right. At least that is the one saving grace for it. It's not like it's John Anarisa playing trying to kick a ball with his right foot. There's that slight positive, but the right back situation is. I feel like I just want him to pick one of them and go with them and stick with them. And
the thing with the Phil is that I think it's the manager's first genuine piece of on-pitch adversity. I want to be clear, you've referenced there Jota, and Van Dijk mentions it post-match as well, and the Chelsea manager actually mentions it in a couple of different ways over the course of it. You've mentioned that there. So the manager's had huge adversity, something horrendous to deal with, and he's done it brilliantly. But I'd say this is his first bit of genuine on-pitch adversity. I also think it's our first bit since, I'm going to say the summer of 2023. I think some people would say April 24, but I think that by then we knew where we were as a club, and we knew where the moment was, and we knew that we were good. I think this is, for a collective around different levels of head loss. I think this is some adversity, and I think we're quite surprised by it because there just hasn't been very much of it.
And also the fact you win the league, people get into their head that there's not going to be adversity because won the league last year with the champions, everything will just remain the same, and it's football's not that simple as that. Football is not a constant where everybody just plays at the same level, and form is constant, fitness is constant, confidence is constant. That's just not how it works, and we're in a trough at the minute, and they've got to find the way back up to that peak. And
quickly though.
Yeah, quickly, absolutely. But I think your point before about the fixtures. I mean, if you consider we've won 5 out of 7, and we've still played 5 of the other teams in the top 8. That's
4 away, by the way.
4, yeah, that's quite... No, 3 away.
Sorry,
Burnley, but we played Burnley away.
No, sorry, I mean, of our 7 fixtures, 4
We have played
away.
4 away, but one of them was Burnley, I think probably the worst team in the league, so we can probably we can part that one. But the rest of the fixtures, we have had a genuinely tough start.
Yeah.
Like we can't forget that, and that's probably not helped with the ability to play our way into form. Like you look at, for example, we've got 8 games from after the next international break, whereby I think the second hardest game is Brighton at home.
Yeah.
Now, if you put Brighton at home into the run of fixtures we've had now, might be the second easiest. Might genuinely be the second easiest, and that is. I'm not saying that fixtures should be all easy or all hard or whatever, but it would be nice to be able to get a bit of rhythm up in terms of who we're playing, whereby we just feel like we're playing genuinely difficult games, and that's fine. You've got to play them at some point, but I'd like them if we weren't playing them all together, and 3 aways in a week as well. Like, I mean, it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say now after the event, but the Premier League surely got to look at this, that teams playing 2 away games either side of a European game. Like, I know they do the fixture listing that you were never organised to play 3 league games away from home or at home in a row. They do that. Perfectly sensible. They've got to do something whereby teams aren't in that position. It's a hard thing to do, and there's got to be a little bit more.
Well, it comes for us later in the season.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that. I know you. I'm just saying it comes for this. Like I've done the same thing as you. You and I are similar in this matter. I've looked all the way ahead, and there's runs that come for Liverpool that are genuinely nice and genuinely kind. And let's be clear about that. But then you've got to put the fucking points on the board. Then, and the concern at the minute with the adversity, Ian, is that there is, I feel like the manager, I don't know what his plan is for the international break. I'm not saying he's got to sit in his house or only go the AXA. If he wants to go and have a break, he can go and have a break. But I think he's got a lot to think about. To think about before we come back. This is a tough time. He's got all the grace in the world as far as I'm concerned, given last season and everything that went on in the summer. But this is the point now where you become the Liverpool manager when your back's up against the wall.
Yeah, but oh my God, he's got so much grace. I mean, any of the nonsense that people may or may not have seen online is still where it's talking about, things like, is he the right man and all that? I mean, come on, let's have a fucking sensible conversation. The guy's been unbelievable. He's been unbelievable, and he's allowed to get things wrong, and all managers will get things wrong sometimes. That is just the territory. So, yeah, he has got a lot to think about, but it's not easy, and some of the stuff the lads have laid out there is all really, really fair. Some of those games, regardless of whether you're in your pomp or not, they are a tough set of fixtures, and there is a lot of challenges with all the new faces and stuff, and sometimes it sounds wild, but sometimes you do almost just forget a little bit of what this group have gone through in the summer, and I think that's perfectly fine and fair, and again, I've seen people just dismissing that a little bit too easily. Who are we to dismiss that? No, we're not inside that training ground and that group of people, so I don't think you can do that. Anyone who's gone through any form of grief knows that sometimes it comes in waves, it affects people in different ways, and it won't always be plain sailing. So, we can all sit here and at times give them a little bit of a hard time, and then you come away and you think, well, I might be a bit too harsh there, I don't know, because it's hard to know. But I think all you can do is act in good faith and sometimes just judge what you're seeing on the pitch, and go from there. And as long as you're coming at it from a really good, honest place, then I don't think you can do much more than that, in fairness. But there's no doubt, the captain coming out and speaking about it means it's still a factor, it's still a thing, and we've got to maybe think a little bit about that. But yeah, there's challenges to come. But you mentioned there about putting points on the board. After the international break, they have got Manchester United, they have got Brentford, they have got Aston Villa. So you're looking at those fixtures and thinking, well, they are fixtures you've got to go and win. And there's games in between there. There's a European game, by the way.
They're not bankers.
No, they're not bankers, and there's a European game in there as well. There's a Crystal Palace League Cup game in there. So that all adds to it in terms of...
I'm picking Phil and Rob up front.
I play me centre-back.
But I've got to be honest, all of a sudden you look at that fixture and you think, well, that's got to come way down the list of priorities, and the league fixtures have got to take priority. The European game, they'll need to get something given what happened in Turkey. But they are games now where Liverpool are going to be right at it. And as you said, the manager's got 2 weeks just to work a few bits out.
Rob, let's talk about the second half. The air comes out of the ball. Liverpool are playing quite well. Ball goes in the back of the net from nowhere. As you said before, it should be dealt with. It's ridiculous he gets the time and space to get the shot off that he does. It's still a 25-yarder, but Liverpool should do much better for it.
Yep.
The rest of that first half, I think it's a bit of a funny situation where Liverpool are second best, but Chelsea ultimately aren't that good.
No.
They should be pressing home their advantage. If you think about what Palace did after they got the early goal, Palace created 3 or 4 really serviceable chances against Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool are better than they were against Palace. I just don't think Chelsea take the opportunity as much as Palace did. Second half, straight from kick-off, it feels like the equaliser's coming.
Yeah.
And I mean this genuinely as praise for Liverpool, praise for the manager. It's a good half-time, a lot's been ironed out, and Liverpool are able to get at them. For me, that is why this game is so difficult in a couple of ways, given all the emotion, we watch football emotionally, is you go from a circumstance where you feel like the Liverpool goal's coming, the Liverpool goal comes. You feel for an extended period like 2-1's coming to Liverpool, and then the air goes out of the balloon on 75 when Chelsea make 3 changes.
Yeah.
But not just that. I think something Liverpool have struggled, and then you feel like a Chelsea goal's coming last 10 minutes of the match. Let's accentuate the first part of that with this. Liverpool in that period, second half, led, I'd argue, by Wirtz, are able to really impose themselves on that game and create and create and create.
Yeah, we're good. As you said, it seems odd to think there was only one winner, but there was for the majority of that half. It felt like we were going to win that football match. And ultimately, I think the fact that our bad phases at the end of the game is because of 2 things. One, because if you don't punish a team when you're on top, eventually they're going to have a spell. Football is a sport which happens in waves. And also that we were going to get tired. I said coming into the Chelsea game, this is going to be really hard for us at the end of this week, regardless of whether we'd won the first 2 games or not, because you're coming back from Turkey and you're playing against a team that has been at home. It's going to be tiring. It's a tough away at the best of times, and they're going to be knackered. Liverpool teams tend to play worse when they come back from European aways. It's a fact of life. Now, for us to have to take on that challenge, having lost twice, we had a confidence issue as well as the fatigue issue, means that we were within our rights probably to have actually a worse performance than we got out of Liverpool, I think. So I think it is to their credit how they performed from 45 to what time are you going till?
75 to 80.
Yeah, I enjoyed that performance. And I thought...
But what they didn't do well, though, Rob, was said by the creative before. What I meant by creative was what they did really well was they managed to get themselves deep into Chelsea territory with a lot of space. What they then didn't do well, with the possible exception of one touch from Alexander Isak, is ensure that they created an excellent chance.
Yep.
And that, to me, is the...
Salah did it twice.
Yeah.
The shot.
Well, we did. The chance for Salah right at the beginning of the half. I've watched the chances back. There's 2 where Salah gets it on his left and bends when he really should pass. There's one where Curtis Jones...
But even a couple of them, the ball maybe shouldn't have gone to Salah.
Yeah.
There's other options when they're breaking forwards. There's people in more space, and we err towards going towards Salah, and I understand why. But there's a couple on either of those. You can see the ball can go elsewhere. My point here is, Rob, they were doing a really good job of getting to 2/3, and it's just that final bit where they could have just really done with stepping up. Is that they haven't played together enough? Is that there's the other bit? Is there other? What I'm asking here is why isn't that bit a little bit better?
There is another factor which I noticed, and I don't know how it was the other end because I was the far end away from it. Chelsea put an enormous amount of bodies at the edge of their 6-yard box and kept throwing them on the line. I mean, what are the stats on the shots we had blocked during that game? That was a big shot blocked game, and it's a bit like
Shabazz, just after they scored, Shabazz, I think he should do a lot better with that chance. Personally.
He actually has a good chance, I think on 85 as well.
He can take a touch.
That's sort of what I mean. That's sort of what I mean.
It's not just a shot, it's, yeah.
Chelsea were throwing bodies in front of everything in a way that the thing that disappointed me most about it, if you put the fatigue thing to one side, is that not that we didn't create, I thought we were relatively creative against a team that wanted to bed in and thwart us in that phase. But once we'd blown ourselves out, I thought we didn't know how to defend anymore. We didn't know how to not defend, we didn't know how to get ourselves compact and get our shape right. We should have been able to stop them getting in behind the way they did once the air had gone out of us. Yes, we could have created more, but again, they're not mugs. They decided to compensate for the lack of centre halves by defending as a compact team. And Caicedo, Lavia and Enzo are good, competent midfielders.
Really
that is a defence when you needed it. And they were all behind the ball. We were wasteful at times, but I thought when Andy Robbo came on, it looked quite lively. Funnily enough, I thought when we took Isak off and brought Ekitike on, which didn't feel like the wrong thing to do because you think Ekitike is lively and he didn't do anything wrong. We lost something because I thought Isak was building into the game as it went by, and obviously he'd made the goal. So that felt something to me.
Building into the game's dead interesting, as Rob frames it there, because a couple of times this season we've said, just at the moment where you feel as though Wirtz is picking up space in games. It's just the moment where he gets substituted.
Yeah.
And I feel a little bit similar with Isak. I felt Isak was at the rhythm and the pitch of the game. And I'm not, you know, I agree, Ekatike is absolutely fine, but he just wasn't quite able to find little ways to impact in the way in which it felt like Isak was. That's one little thing, but if decision making is a little sharper in the final third, Phil, I think there's every chance they're defending a 2-1 lead with 5 to go knackered, rather than defending a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think Rob mentioned it a couple of others. 2 where Salah cuts on his left foot and he shoots, and it's a wild shot that goes nowhere near. And there was one of them he could have. I'm pretty sure Gakpo was in a lot of space waiting for a cutback. There's an Isak one. There was a couple of them where it's a bit like, I know you're brilliant, but I'd like you to make a better decision here.
Yeah.
And I know you back yourself to do that, and to be honest, I back you to do that as well. But it wasn't the best solution. It's one of those where if they pause it and go, you know, one of the things that last 10 years in football is position of maximum opportunity and XG and all this, and explaining to people, don't make that decision, make this one. And I feel there were 3 or 4 moments where we probably could have done that better as a team.
Do you think it's almost like Salah has to accept he may have to pass the mantle? Our main goal scorer was on at one point. And he's out of relatively angry with him.
To a point, I think he just backs himself and thinks that.
He's
got 2 goals in 7 games. One of them's a penalty. He's probably thinking, it's on me to do this. I need to do better than this. And he's thinking, I can score here, which it's fine to think it, but I'd rather he didn't.
But the flip side of that, I think he got the most assists in the country last season.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just him feeling. No, I agree. I think it's not like he isn't happy to lay on for people. But I think there's just a bit of a thing where I think he was feeling like, I need to fucking contribute here because I've not been contributing enough. The break in this context, Phil, being no bad thing, but again, this is the sort of stuff the manager's got to try to find a bit of time to work on with them as well, and work on that decision making in the final third, because if that is a little bit better, I'll say again, I think Liverpool do end up 2-1 up with 5 to go. Could still have gone 2-2, but they end up 2-1 up with 5 to go.
Yeah, and it's why I'm sort of simultaneously annoyed, frustrated, but also slightly encouraged in a weird way that you probably shouldn't be after the way that last week's gone, but I don't think it's been. I said this on one of the. I can't believe I've done 3 free shows after 3 defeats in a row. It's a real hospital pass, this deal. But I think one of them, I think I said, I've been like, it doesn't look far away, and I still genuinely don't believe it looks far away in terms of what it is, and it's little things and bits of confidence. It's not fundamentally flawed. It's not fundamentally broken. It's just on the cusp of a few other things going different ways, and you're a bit more positive. Like, set pieces killing me, like the Palace goal and the Palace opener and Galatasaray's goal. You should be able to see those off, really. I think for different reasons. The goal the other day, you should see it off, and goals change games. I'd like us to not be in a position where we're giving the opposition the opportunity to change the game without doing anything particularly special. And I know that might sound like Caicedo's goal wasn't brilliant, but we gave him that opportunity. I think Van Dijk's decision to be more bothered about the through ball was peculiar, to be honest. But then next time he might close the ball down, the shot doesn't happen, and all of a sudden we're on the front foot, we counter-attack and score. I know it's not that simplistic, but little decision-making over the course of 90 minutes we've got wrong, and start making better decisions and things might just look a little bit better.
This all fair, but this is where, listen, it doesn't help the managers use 2 subs by the time we get to a fullback, by the time we get to 55. Yeah. He's made his Konate call. I think Konate might have had a bit of a knock, but it's Gravenberch to centre-back. But I think it works for Liverpool. I think it works fine for the period. I think Liverpool distribute better. It all looks a little bit brighter. Ian, for me, what is then difficult, we mentioned that Chelsea make a triple substitution, and it's not like, for instance, Gay through the middle does anything other than run round loads. But the point is, he's there, he's young, he's fit, he's able to run round loads. Those are the 2 lads in wide areas, there's pace to bear. And, you know, Liverpool do have Ekatike to come on, but it's almost obliged. It's got to be Isak because Liverpool want to protect him. Just ultimately, we talked a lot of last season about this team having options, and at the minute, it doesn't really feel like they have, or if they do, they're options the manager's really reluctant to use, and that's something else for him to think about, I think, in this break. Yeah, potentially so. I think, I mean, when you are obviously easing 1 or 2 in and having to look after him, then you're looking to others to maybe step up. And you know, Salah got mentioned before, you know, the one where Verts puts it on a plate for him. He's just got to do so much better. Yeah. It's on his right foot, it shouldn't really matter. He's got to hit the target, he's got to work the goalkeeper. I know Gakpo scores, but I think he's really poor. And I think there is some stats flying now where you can look at it and say Gakpo created this and this, but I just think his overall game is just
it just looks a mile off.
He's just not enough of a threat for me.
He's just too easy to play against, Rob,
Yeah.
I think. And I think this is
You know, he's not, if you're a right back, you know, he's not going one side of you.
Yeah.
He did go outside more than I've seen for a while.
You've been able to, even when Gakpo was in good form and people would say, oh, Cody's doing great, nearly all of it was at Anfield. And that's great, don't get me wrong, you take that, but you do need some of those performances to come away from home where it is a bit tough. You've got to dig in. And listen, he gets his goal and he can be proud of that because he gets in the space and he finishes it. But his overall performance worries me. You've got two wide forwards who are not prepared the majority of the time to take their fullback on the outside.
No,
they don't do it.
They don't have the pace.
They don't do it. So as a fullback, you know full well, 99% of the time, what the challenge is. Yeah. It's coming inside. It's too easy to play against. Now, the manager's chosen not to make changes in those wide areas. You know, could he maybe have done Chiesa for Gakpo or even for Salah towards the end? Well, he makes the call that he's got to take McAllister off with 4 or 5 minutes to go, and he throws Endo on, and I think it's absolutely madness that he does that. Yeah. If you're bringing anyone on, if it's not going to be Chiesa, then it has to be Joe Gomez. Yeah. And you allow one of the midfielders to shift into the middle of the park. You allow Szoboszlai or Gravenberch to go back in there. I couldn't believe he'd done Endo, but there you are. And then the other thing, I just think, slightly separate from what we've been talking about, but I keep coming back to it, I've said it for a long time, Liverpool are such a nice team to play against. They're so nice. There's very, very, very little, for me, of the dark arts prominent in our game across a series of matches. I just don't see it. I think the manager's referenced it where there's times people could be going down. We're almost too honest. You see it in the Palace game. You know, you see Chelsea demonstrating someone out. You know, Garnacho's a rat, but he knows how to get a play booked.
Also, they were breaking out. I mean, when we had heads of steam, they were breaking momentum. We could have done that to them last 5, 10.
Cucurella gets Szoboszlai booked. Cucurella gets Szoboszlai booked for winning the ball, by the way. But he gets him booked. Now, you might not like that side of football, but it's there. Yeah. And sometimes in those big games, you've just got to take your opportunity to maybe get one booked and go, you know what, that puts him on the back foot. Now, I said before at the very start, you know, the manager had to make a change because he got things wrong. In fairness to him, Conor Bradley gets booked. And it doesn't help when your fullbacks keep getting booked and putting themselves under pressure. We did the pre-match warm-up show and I said, I'd play Bradley because you want Szoboszlai in the middle of the park. But the problem is, he can't get booked early because he's got to put himself under pressure and compromise what then comes next. So, yeah, it's not easy, but you just feel when Liverpool are in the ascendancy, they've got to find a way of being able to put the foot down.
The dark arts thing, I think there's a couple of opportunities the other side of 85. I think one of the problems is they're thinking we can still win this. Yeah. Liverpool. I think there's a strong argument on 85, and I wonder if the manager went by virtue of bringing Endo on is trying to communicate this to them that a point's fine at this stage. This is it. What we have, we hold. Yeah. But that said, for me, Rob, there's just a couple of opportunities where players could just sit down. Yeah. Could just go, I've got a knock here. We've got to take and Liverpool instead allow the opposition to build up that head of steam. But as I say, I think it's because the Liverpool collective's attitude is it's 1-1 with 5 minutes to go. What do? We go and win. But in the last 2 games, there would have been a lot to be said on 92 minutes going, you know what we do, lads? We don't fucking get beat.
Well, it was funny, in the ground, when that board goes up on 7, around me it was like, 7, it should have been more. I was like, I don't want 7. Yeah. I want to get out here. I was dealing at that stage. I mean, you know, I felt putting Endo on was the throwing in of the towel, quite frankly. He knew that this game wasn't there to be won.
But his own approach to the game didn't match up with that. There was one time he's running down the right wing with the ball.
Yeah.
Endo.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? That's not his job when he comes on. Should be to kick things away and head things away. And he's running forward the ball. I 100% agree. I don't even think he should be on the bench instead of Leone. I just don't see the value in it. Like, it baffled me the other week against Everton when he was on the bench and Chiesa wasn't, because there was one situation where he could possibly come on the pitch, and that's if Liverpool lead by a goal going into injury time, and he doesn't get on the pitch. So what was the point in him being there? If he's the one situation when he should be on the pitch, he's not there for. And I think when everybody saw him come on, I was a bit like, this makes no sense to me, and it made less sense when you actually saw how he played. He didn't sit in. No. He was using the ball, he was bombing on, he was trying to force passes, he was trying to win. Which I said, Palace, I said after the Palace game, I did the show after the Palace game, and I said, if we'd have lost by trying to win the game, I'd possibly been all right with it. And I feel like they took that a little bit too literally. Yeah. In that someone who doesn't have that within his repertoire
comes on and tries to win it. My point is that was we're just all shutting it down now, lads. And if we've got to go and defend the 6-yard box, we'll go and do that as well. But they don't choose to do that. But I think it's because intuitively, as a group, we are the champions. This is what we do. We try and win. But this is back to the overall thing. There is such a thing as a good point, and they were quite good at getting a good point last season. I don't think that, for instance, breaking the backs at Villa with 5 to go. I mean, Everton's a different one because it's the last kick of the game that Tarkowski equalises with. So they are trying to see that one out. But there is such a thing as a good point. And I think in 2 instances back to back, there were good points on offer. Not least because we now be 1 fucking point clear at the top.
Neil, we can talk about going into games, you want this, you want that, but you feel the game.
The game's organic.
You feel it when you're in it, and you know full well in those moments against Palace and Chelsea, there's a point where you go, you know what, we're all right here. We'll just take our medicine and get the fuck out, and then we'll review it. We'll deal with it after the event. But yeah, you feel the game, and then you take your point, and then you go home. So
I do think there is a culture which we have to celebrate more than criticise it. That Slot, I'm not saying it's different from under Jurgen, but Slot throws a lot of forwards on. When we've been trying to win games in other situations, he's thrown a lot. We finished the game with like 5 forwards on the pitch. Everyone's on the pitch. He doesn't respect the sanctity of the single point at all times. He's often given the impression that he'd rather take 0 than not give us the chance of getting 3. And during his tenure at Liverpool, that's just worked. We've now faced 2 games in succession where that hasn't worked. I mean, he actually blames Frimpong against Palace for their goal at the end because Frimpong's trying to counter-attack when there's no time left. But that is the culture that the manager's has imbued in us. And if we go on to win the title again, we'll go, well, we had to take some pain there, but we won. And this is the reason we've won football matches late this season, by the way, is because we never say we're not winning this game.
But I think that I think you've got to sort of...
It's different against Bournemouth at home. It's different against Bournemouth at home or Newcastle, who've got 10 men, than it is against...
Of course it is.
Crystal Palace or
and in the context of... You can't
tiredness.
But you can't have... my point is you can't have it both ways and say it's a bastard of a week and then go, but we should be definitely going and breaking our backs to win this late. And that's where there's... I think anyway you saw dissonance. I thought there was dissonance across the team again at Palace. I thought some of them were thinking all 3 points here and some of them were thinking what we have we hold. And I think that you've got to... and I thought when the manager put Sentendo on, the one thing it said to me was, all right, we'll all sit in, but as you say, then suddenly...
That's not what happened.
He's marauding down the right, absolutely throwing himself at it. So that there's conflict there. Listen, I want to do a couple of the performances just quickly because I think confidence and fitness are impacting in a couple of ways. Rob, I feel... Phil said before about Konate, I think there's a problem, which is that when he gets in his own head, a lot of this becomes less good. And it isn't even necessarily the thing he's got in his own head about that's the problem. If then, for instance, his passing diminishes, he feels as though he takes fewer chances and risks, and then he can become hugely frustrating in matches. And it's another game here where he just hasn't played very well, unfortunately.
No, and it's, I mean, Palace was a disaster, one of the worst 45s of his career last week. And he did what you described. He allows one bad situation to become multiple bad situations. But you can see everything go from his game after he makes a couple of errors. When he was on the ball at times against Chelsea, he thought, for fuck's sake, just give it a simple ball to somebody else, Now, quite frankly.
You got the U.
Yeah, well, exactly. Reminds me of the goal.
I had a lot of U's on Saturday.
What are you doing?
Yeah, well, there was think about there was a time with Konate, I'll maybe go back a couple of years, where he was starting to play on the ball a bit, stride. Do you remember those games he'd stride out of defence, punch it into midfield? He's getting better on the ball, but there's also times you think, you're just not a footballer. You're a defender, but you're not a footballer. It doesn't look like you... Yeah, and that was really, really worrying. I don't know. I lost a lot of faith in Konate after that Everton debacle, and I know he's come back and put some big games in for us.
Won the league.
Yeah, he's amazing. But let's put it this way.
But we don't forget what happens at Goodison Park, do we, Rob?
We don't forget what happens at Goodison Park. Let's put it this way. It's nice and simple. Had that Mark Gahey transfer gone over the line on the August the 31st, Mark Gahey would be first pick alongside Virgil van Dijk now for Liverpool on the end of this week. Am I wrong? I think Mark Gahey would be lining up.
Well, there's a question here, which is would you start Gomez against Manchester United?
The problem is if Konate hasn't been overplayed by France and is fit, the trouble with Gomez is you take your life in your hands and you play him once and you'll never see him again. So it's almost he's just such a break glass. Actually, I think the question is, would you play Ryan Gravenberch against Man United. But
Got
look,
a plan in
I
midfield.
know. Unless, it depends if Alexis McAllister plays for Argentina or not. You can put a 2 of against Man United at Anfield of Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones with Florian Wirtz ahead of them. And that's a great midfield. And if it takes Ryan Gravenberch to have a creative role from the back, then fine. Don't worry, I'm not really advocating this.
So, but I'm asking you, would you play Joe Gomez?
Against Man U?
Yeah.
No.
Would you play Joe Gomez against
I would,
United? Yeah.
You think it's got that bad?
It's that bad. I just think Joe Gomez is still quite good. Joe Gomez is good at football.
Yeah, he is good,
And
yeah.
the man who is playing in the position he could play in
Maybe
is not
you're
playing
right. I don't know.
particularly
I need
well.
to think
So
about it. Maybe you're right.
I think there's certain opponents where, like I probably wouldn't have done it at Galatasaray, for example, where he's got Osimhen or Mateta maybe, but I probably would do it against Chelsea, where it's not as hard to defend isolated
If
and
you could
stuff like
guarantee
that.
me Joe was fit for the next 10 games, I'd go. If the question was, do you want to put Joe in now and you've got him for the next 10 minimum, I'd go yes. If I had a guarantee that he's just not going to break down. So yeah, I do see the merit in it.
There's a problem at the minute with progressing the ball as well. And
Yeah.
I know sometimes the options aren't always there, but Liverpool have landed in a place where, and let's be clear, against Chelsea, they end up with such a change back four, which can never be the plan. All of a sudden you've got 2 of your midfielders in your back four. That's never going to be good. And whilst they may do jobs for you at times, they haven't quite got the natural instinct of a proper defender, and that can leave you a little bit susceptible to certain moments. But ultimately, Liverpool have found themselves, obviously, without Trent Alexander-Arnold, he wanted to go, so fuck him. But they've got Bradley at full-back, got Kirkus at left-back. None of them feel great in terms of progressing the ball, and they've got a centre-half in Konate who, only when he's at his very kind of, I suppose, confident best, does he feel like he can punch it through the lines. So I think for that reason, there's a strong case for playing Joe. Now, people's minds might go back to Southampton in a week when he wasn't particularly great, and that would worry you. But I think if you can get Gomez pairing to anywhere near his best, there's definitely a case for it. There's definitely a case for doing it. But it does feel strange how Liverpool have all of a sudden, and the fullbacks are getting a little bit of stick at the minute, I understand to an extent. But they are not fullbacks who typically, even if you choose Frimpong instead of Bradley, who are brilliant at progressing the ball, and yet Liverpool have gone out and bought them. So what was the plan with that? I'm fine with having flying fullbacks, by the way, no problem with it. But you're probably going to need a centre-half who can progress it for you, which I agree with you. If Gay was through the building, he'd be starting. People might say, well, he doesn't play right-hand side very often. He didn't, and he hasn't, but he has played in the back forward, and he is right-footed. I think he'd bought into taking Konate's place because he was coming, and he knew he wasn't taking Van Dijk, so he must have been comfortable looking at that right-hand spot and going, I'll have that, because I'm not getting the left-hand one. But Liverpool now have got a problem where they can't really progress it. And as I say, some of that might be down to midfield options and not a lot ahead of them.
Well, the manager talked about how...
But it is an issue.
He was thinking he was going to do the Gravenberch for Konate change anyway, regardless of the tightening of Konate's quads.
And Liverpool look better when
they
for
did.
the period when Gravenberch goes back, because he's better on the ball.
Pay that
There's one little dodgy one where he does give it away, but broadly speaking, he was much better there because he can pass the football a lot better than Konate.
Bradley, right back, 45.
I don't know. I'm struggling to even actually remember much about that performance.
Is it impacted by what's happening inside him? Is it impacted by what's happening ahead of him? I had a bit of sympathy for him against Palace, but in back-to-back games where I've got my sympathy has run out, if you see what I mean.
I'm a Bradley fan. I really like Conor Bradley. I think he's come back from injury and he's not had a chance to have a regular position in the side, enough to get enough rhythm, and he's still a relatively young footballer. I look at him at times, I look at his athleticism and his skill set and think, I'm actually not sure whether you're not a better midfielder than a right back. I think, I'm not saying he's Steven Gerrard, but it's sort of in the way that Gerrard adapted from being played as a right back early on to being put inside. This is Matt's a wild shout, and I'll move on from that. But as a right back, I think he can go on to have a really, really good career for Liverpool as a right back. I just think he needs a little bit of time and rhythm with it. Whether he's the better option out of the three we've got at the moment is another question. But I'll be persevering with him. Obviously, he didn't play well Sunday and he got himself booked and taken off. But I'm not sure he's one of the bigger issues Liverpool have got at the moment.
I'm not.
You're not convinced?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think he's bad. I think he's all right. And I'm just not...
I think he might be very good still.
Maybe, but I'm just not quite sure what I'm watching sometimes. I think I would like to see Frimpong given a run just to see what it looks like. To be honest, I think he's
I would too.
possibly got a little bit more about him. I think Bradley absolutely has a role to play. It's not like he's absolutely useless, get rid of him. I'm just looking at him and I'm thinking, for a team competing for titles, is he at the level where he can be the first choice right back? And I'm not sure. I think he's done a lot of good, but I think there's a bit of an absence makes the heart grow fonder thing with him. When he's been injured, he's been back up, and it's been like, oh yeah, he can come in and do this based on thought rather than actual tangible evidence. I think, and it sounds like I'm being really critical of him. I'm not being critical. I think he's absolutely got a role to play. I'm just not 100% sure that he's the level that Liverpool want for first choice right back.
I think tactically at the moment, the reason I'd err on the side of picking Frimpong is because of pace. I mean, Bradley's no slouch, but Frimpong's rapid. I think we don't, as the problem identified earlier with Mohamed Salah is not going outside his man, means we are lacking pace down that side at times. I think lacking pace down both sides. And I think this is why I think Frimpong and Kirkes in tandem do give you a bit of that. And
But you've got to send them.
Sorry?
You've got to send them.
Yeah, I know.
This is it. I feel like sorry for Kirkes in a way where I know it's not all been particularly great on the eye, but I think he had good performances against Arsenal and Everton. He's been slated a little bit too unfairly. I think there's almost this thing where you're not playing to his strengths because you're not letting him go, and he wants to go. And whenever I picture,
he played well.
Whenever I picture Kirkes in a Bournemouth shirt, he's bombing down the wing, and that's what he's doing, and he's putting in a really, really good ball. He's not particularly strong, maybe at progressing it. So you'd say Andy Robertson's better on the ball in terms of feeding balls down the line, coming inside. Andy Robertson looks more comfortable in possession of the football, but then people were shouting for Robbo to play against Chelsea, but Robbo does struggle against pace now. He just does. And he's seen for the goal. And listen, I don't know whether
he's blowing for the goal, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he limped off. I don't know whether he was injured or not, but I've seen...
Sit down, though. Yeah. Just back to my sit-down point. If you're injured,
manage the game better.
But also, I've seen Robbo do that a lot recently, where he just switches off back post, because the reactions aren't quite there. Now, he is a Liverpool legend, let's be clear on that, but he's not quite the player he once was. But if you could almost combine the two, you'd probably have something at the minute that you're comfortable with. But I just think some of the kind of discourse around Kirkes feels a little bit unfair. He is, for me, he's got him playing to instruction in terms of not bombing up and down the left-hand side. So if you want to get the best out of him, you've got to let him go.
All right, the break you mentioned there with Kirkes, for me, there's what the international breaks give you at this point of a season, Ian, is a chance to reset. And what I'd like him to do, so what I was asking before about Gomez, I want to ask you about right back, I want to ask you what you want to do in midfield, because I feel a little bit like I'm fine with the manager looking to do some rotation because he's looking to help fitness, he's looking to keep people sharp, but I almost feel a little bit like maybe that's the midweek games now. I'd quite like him to bed down into 4 league games, this is me back 4. 4 league games, this is of the 6 that play in front of that back 4, because we know the goalkeeper's going to be Mamardashvili for the majority of them anyway. Yeah. Of the 6 that play in front of that back 4, this is a pretty consistent 5, and there's maybe a little bit of a swivel there. What I'm asking you really is, who do you want to see him commit to?
Yeah, I think some of this becomes slightly difficult with players' fitness, because all of a sudden they're going to go off now and play 2 games. Now, what does that mean? Can he play 2 games? I think he's injured, isn't he, against Chelsea anyway? So maybe you just do go with Gomez because he gets to stay behind and he can work on stuff, albeit there won't be many of them around, but maybe it is him. I would persevere with Kirkes, to be honest. I think I would at the minute, because I do think Robbo is just a bit of a fading force when he's up against pace. I think the right-back one is really tricky, because the best right-back so far this season has been Dom Szoboszlai, but my God, they need him in the middle of the park for most games. Listen, he signed Frimpong for a reason, but there is this thing where you can make yourself a little bit smaller in certain games if he's in your back 4.
So Brentford away.
Brentford away, they have a lot of throws coming in, stuff like that, or they'll do it a bit, they looked a bit soft against City for the majority. Certainly the first half I saw, they offered nothing, to be fair.
I don't think it's wrong that we rotate the fullbacks necessarily. And we did it with Gakpo and Diaz in that position for a while last season. I think we can still do a horses for courses with Bradley. Bradley and Frimpong, sorry, don't you? Don't you think you got Brentford?
No, I think you can. And to be fair, Bradley's fitness, if he's going to go away and play 2 games for Northern Ireland, sometimes he hasn't got it in him to play 5, 6, 7, 8 in the run. That's one of the things that's holding him back a little bit. The lad's an athlete, no doubt, but there's loads of stuff for him to work on. He's naive in the tackle. He's a little bit rash as well. but he's young enough to improve. There's no doubt about it. But I think you could, Robbie, I wouldn't disagree. You could probably flip the right full-back, but I probably would commit to Kerkez for the time being. But listen, things can change.
Do you think there's a chance he's a little bit in his own head with the week in March where we play PSG, and then there's the Southampton game, then there's the League Cup final, and we were basically exhausted by the end of that, and he realised that his approach had obviously got to a position where we were in a really good position, but it probably wasn't something that he could repeat again. Do you think he might be in his own head, and he's sort of like, I feel like he's making changes that have no relationship with the flow of a game, and it's basically, I'm bringing him off at this minute, and that is exactly what I have to do. I think the only time he's gone against that was the Isak one against Palace, when I think he left him on longer than he wanted to. But the rest, for the most part, I feel like we're getting to this minute on the clock, he is coming off, and that's going to work in the long run. Now, it might work in the long run, but in the here and now, I think the substitutions and decisions being made that are not at kilter with how the game's going.
And
it might not be the greatest way of going about things in the short term, but I think in sort of, February, March, April, you'll see it.
I think it's a bit of a conspiracy of circumstance, and it's a bit that experience from March or February, whenever it was. I think it feels like the teams and the substitutions are being sports science picked. The sports science team are in his ear, metaphorically or literally, picking the teams and telling him when something changes. Part of it, as you said, is because of the trauma of that week where we look spent. But other parts of it are simply, we've actually had a pretty full fit squad, but lots of them are being rehabilitated. Conor Bradley's being rehabilitated. McAllister's being rehabilitated. Isak's being rehabilitated. Then on top of that, you've got new to the league factor. Frimpong, Wirtz. So constantly it's about how many minutes can you give him? How many minutes not what's the team? I did feel at the point Isak went off on Saturday, I thought, he's growing into this. I don't think he's going to die if he plays another 15 minutes. And do you know what I mean? It wasn't the substitution wasn't playing the game state.
Though, Robin, because
those
muscle injuries are going to come. They're going to come late in games.
That, they will.
All right, then we can't have our cake and eat it. Quite frankly, we either have to buy into the fact that these are the right, responsible things to do, and we are going to have to suffer as a team and a group of fans during this phase while we rehabilitate these, and hopefully by match day 10. We're back on an even keel, and he can just go, I want my best 11 today. But this is what we're seeing, this lack of harmony, this lack of rhythm, for these reasons.
He ended up, where I worry that they might be overstated, and listen, they might also be looking at internal things from April and May that we don't know. But where I worry a little bit is, I think that February was really hard. It's no surprise, and the same we've just talked about this week, that February they end up playing 2 more games in February than they should. Both of them are away from home, and both of them are emotional epics that you could just do without, and then they pay the price
Brentford
for that.
And Bournemouth?
No, Everton
and
Villa. Should neither Everton and Villa should not have been in that February. No. Now, they might have to play extra games in February this year if they don't sort themselves out in Europe. Let's be clear about that. But you actually look at February at the minute, there's only currently, I think, 2 league games scheduled for Liverpool to play in the month of February as it stands currently. So I think that is but so if that is really present, there's a part of me that wants to say, but it wasn't meant to be that way, lads. But that said, I think that, for instance, they looked tired around mid-December last year when that Everton game was called off. They had the 3-3 at Newcastle and looked a bit like, Christ, this has been hard at this point.
Girona away, where it was a bit like, it was a struggle.
Yeah,
it was a struggle. So I think there's
that game. What was the score?
1-0 penalty. We created
nothing.
Very little.
So that's gone from my mind.
It's one, but I think this is a thing. I think there's a couple of other things though, and this back to play in the moment and meeting the moment, Phil, and waiting for the games to become a little bit easier. It's a weekend where the only away wins are against genuine relegation candidates. Everyone else, no one else gets. Now listen, Palace should have beaten Everton, but the only away wins are against genuine relegation candidates. At this stage of a season, away games are hard. We were saying it at this stage last season, but it's back to a good point. I think he has to sort of settle into this is what it is, this is what we're doing. Have a sense of that for United, for Brentford, for Villa, and I feel like City just becomes a bit of a cup final.
Yeah, I think if you can get 9 points going into that City game, which I think is I'd say it's the most likely outcome on a game-by-game basis. They're not an easy 9 points, but
they're about as easy as you're going to get in this league at the
minute. Villa have kicked it up a gear, but they're into the Europa League, and they seem to. I think they struggled with the 2-week football last year in a way that It probably wasn't sorted until they were out of Europe and they finished really strongly. And they nearly get to the Champions League just on the basis of how they were for the last sort of 6 weeks of the season. But before that, they were very up and down. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that one. Brentford away, I just don't think they're a particularly good side.
But there's two teams turning a corner a little bit, aren't they, in Brentford and Villa?
Yeah, but Robbie, you've got to fucking beat someone.
No, I know.
You say this, but
They can't all be hard. They can't all be rock hard
the
games.
City,
You've got to
the
win them,
City,
but don't tell me they're
but
cities.
they played City away. They played City at home yesterday, and Donnarumma didn't really make a save. There was no, he wasn't under any great pressure. They were dominant. They, you know, City were
1-0.
It was, but it wasn't really a 1-0 game.
Sorry,
It wasn't a 1-0 game.
But also, these games, I'm happy to say simultaneously two things are true, which is what we were great at last season. These games are hard, but you've got to find a way through them and go from there. But what my point is that there has to be a notch down from a week of Palace, Galatasaray and Chelsea. These are a notch down from that.
They are. Well, because two of them are home for
And
a start.
United at home, Frankfurt away, Brentford away
games,
is a week where you're looking at and going, right, well, that isn't awful. We should be beating Manchester United at home. I think one thing I would like to see is they're going to come with a back three.
Yeah.
I've said it a million times. We've got a bit of a problem with back threes. Absolutely. You know, I don't want to see a right back with three men run at him, which is what happens every time we play against the back three and he's just isolated. So I would like something that is done to, after 20 minutes of that game, I want to look at it and go, well, the right back's not being given a torrid time because the centre forward's pulled left, whichever midfielder's pulled left, and the left wing back's on him as well. That's what happens when we play a back three. I would like to see something that has gone on to
say that might happen. Let's do this.
Yes, because it's I sort of feel like if I can see something, he can see it.
Yeah.
And he knows much more about football than me. They all know much more about football than me. And sometimes I just get a little bit frustrated by things like that are just very obvious, and I would like to see that stopped. That is what I would like from the next 14 days or 12, 30, however many, I can't even count it.
Because Brentford probably might be a back three as well.
Might be a back three, but at the same time, I don't think they've been playing back three. I don't even know what. They keep changing up, and again, that's another thing I would like to. That's my thing is I would like to see something that makes me think there's things being worked on. And that sounds really critical, and like everyone's just being lazy and going on and playing a game of football. That's not what's happening by any stretch of the imagination. But I would like to see a bit more adaptability to situations than we've probably shown in situations that we've been troubled by.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob, Phil, and Ian. Yeah, I think everyone did all right. You know, don't be on their backs. They're trying their best to come in. Phil's done 3 of these. 3. Imagine it's fucking 3. But this is what he's changed his working hours. He's available in the morning, so this is what happens. That's the way in which it goes. Listen, it's been the Anfield Wrap. Thank you very much to Patrick. Thank you very much to Andy, to Phil, to Ian, and to Rob. It has been the Anfield Wrap. It's been the worst week so far under Arne Slot. But then the flip side of that is we get to see really what he's made of, and the man's a winner.